Good afternoon. I'm going to call this meeting of the Carson City Airport Authority of Wednesday, May 18th to order. Danielle, if we can please have a roll call and determination of a quorum.
Chairperson Golden.
Here.
Vice Chair Pulitz.
Here.
Treasurer Rogers. Member Jones. Member Hamilton.
Here.
Member Hutter. Member Norvell.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Fantastic. Harlow, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Approval of minutes of the past meetings of the Airport Authority. As I was not there, I'm going to abstain from this vote, but I trust everybody else has read through it.
I move to approve.
Okay. We have a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the meeting, or the minutes of, what was the date?
Looks like it was April 20th.
April 20th, 2022.
So you would be the second then, because Stan moved to approve those minutes. We have a second from Harlow. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Thank you. And I abstain from that. So that motion carries. Minutes are approved from the April 20th meeting. Modification to the agenda. I'm not going to be making any modifications to this evening's agenda. Public comment. Any members of the public who wish to address the Airport Authority can do so on any agendized and non-agendized matters related to the airport. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person or topic. And if the item requires any extended discussion, please contact me after this evening's meeting to calendar the matter for a future Airport Authority meeting. So if any members of the public this evening care to provide public comment, now would be the appropriate time. Do we have anyone on the line, Danielle, for public comment?
Hi, Danielle Hauer, Public Meetings Clerk. For the record, there is nobody online at this time.
Okay, we'll close public comment and move on to the airport engineers report. Do we have Nadine on the line? Oh, you're right there. Ah. Sorry, Nadine. You're here in person. Thank you.
For the first time, I'm here in person.
Okay,
Nice to see
it's all
you
yours.
Thank you. Okay, so for project updates, as you all probably have noticed, the AWAS relocation is underway. It got started last Tuesday, and they have constructed the the tower foundation as well as all the other equipment foundations. Concrete trucks were rolling through last week. And they're moving pretty fast. I'm not sure about this week, how much they're going to get done, but it looks like they do have the new tower up. They have a lot of the equipment installed. It looks like, I was just there just about an hour ago. It looks like they still need to finish all the trenching and pulling the power cables and all of that. And they're waiting on their more electrical people to get that finished. And once all that is installed, we will have the equipment supplier All Weather come out and do a commissioning and finish up the installation. And the question did come up already about how long that transition, or at least the downtime on that equipment will be. I don't have an exact time. However, it does sound like we should be able, or the contractor should be able to connect all the power and most of the equipment to the new setup. And keep the old one running, and then by the time they are able to turn on the new one, they can turn off the old one, and that transition between those two things should be fairly smooth, but more details to come on that. We are still waiting on the grant offer on that, but I have seen the FAA's starting to provide grants elsewhere in Nevada, so hopefully that's coming soon this month, maybe next month. No real update on the snow removal equipment delivery. From last time, it's still looking like August-ish at the earliest. And for the aeronautical survey for nighttime approach project, we are trying to close or at least complete the 30% design on that first phase, and the second phase is underway as well. Another one, we're still waiting on the grant for that. And I think that's kind of repetitive. So I'll sit here until we do the next item, if that's okay. That's up for my update. If there's any questions, let me know.
The only question I have for you, Nadine, I'm sorry. I didn't put two and two together. I apologize. On the AWAS relocation project, the Section 163 study that was done for that, approximately how long did that take? How many weeks?
That I don't know.
Okay. I was just curious.
I can look into that. I don't know how long that took.
Yeah, it didn't take a whole lot of time. I know that.
Mm-hmm. Would that hold something up, or is that something you need?
No, I'm just curious. We can figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. I thought maybe you knew.
Not off the top of my head, no.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
This is Corey. I think Kaufman would have the information on that.
Yeah, I was just curious how long it took.
Mm-hmm.
And I do recall it being weeks, not months, but it could have been a couple months, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, thank you. So we'll move on to discussion and possible action, approving the ASIP for this year. And this needs to go before the Board of Supervisors for approval and submitted to the FAA Airport District Office. Corey, you want to lead us through this, please?
I'll get it started. Nadine is going to go over the ASIP with the board today. But you've actually already given it the introduction. I don't have much more to add. So Nadine, if you're prepared to go through the ASIP, I think we're ready for that.
Sure. So it's laid out pretty self-explanatory, as you can see by year, and by year I mean the FAA's fiscal year. So for this fiscal year 22, the projects we have on the list are the phase 2 of the approach lighting system, and that's specifically for the design of the PAPI and the MALSIF systems, and also the AWAS relocation, which was on the previous ASIP for last year. However, the funding kind of got stalled. That's why it got pushed to this year. And then the third one of note is the terminal building project, which is technically still under AIP, but it's under a different type of funding, if you want to call it that, specifically the terminal funding grant, which is very competitive. And the difference on this list, the application does state 5 million, but it doesn't really change between this and what's on the application. Doesn't really change anything. This was formulated before that, and certain calculations kind of changed it by the time Corey turned in that application for the bill. For fiscal year 23, we do have the snow removal equipment building once again to bid and construct. That, if you recall, was on last year's as well, and it got pushed due to the first time it bid. It got pushed due to receiving no bids on that, and it wasn't selected in the letter of intent from the FAA for this year. So that's on for next year. Hopefully, we get that going again. We will get it bid as soon as we have kind of an intent from the FAA that we would have funding for that project. And then also phase 3 of the approach lighting system, which is construction of the PAPI and MALSIF lighting systems. And the first, installment of the normal bill funding, not the terminal bill funding, would be the beginning preliminary steps of the runway extension. And that's the environmental assessment and 25% of the design. So that's what that kind of shaded first line is. It's designated a little bit different than the normal AIP funding. For fiscal year 24, we do have a couple projects to replace the taxiway lighting and install a generator. Again, normal AIP funding for both of those. For fiscal year 25, we have pavement rehab on the main apron and north apron, and taxiway A and taxiway D, and a reconstruction of taxiway B. And let's see, is that 26? And that last line there, again, for the bill funding designation, final design effort for the runway extension. In fiscal year 26, we do have construction of the runway extension and pavement rehab of essentially the rest of the runway that's not new. And then lastly, in 27, we have a construction of taxiway C in the southwest storm drain there at the end of the list. And the totals are shown there down at the bottom. So any questions on that list?
The only question I have is we kind of floundered last time on the construction of the snow removal equipment building. We didn't get any bids, as you may recall. Would it be appropriate to move something else into fiscal year 23, just in case we're in the same predicament again, or we don't get any bids?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I'd hate to lose a funding opportunity
Yeah,
because we just didn't get any bids for that, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is.
yeah. I think for I can make a note of that for this coming up for like next year's ASIP list,
Mm-hmm.
and make a note of that. Maybe have a plan of action to swap something or replace it with something else or move something else up, something like that. And I'll work with Corey on what the priority is with that and another, what other project that would be. Essentially, and I've heard y'all say it before, I think, if you don't ask for it, you definitely,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
no chance of getting it. So having it on there is definitely beneficial to, more likelihood of having this project on their next letter of intent to fund. So yeah, we can definitely talk about what that means, and as we get closer, what we might, what you might be feeling like, what could happen, I guess, what's realistic that'll happen by the time we can bid this again.
And when does the fiscal year change? The FAA fiscal
The
year?
FAA fiscal, I actually have a note of that up at the top here. So they're October to September.
Okay.
Um,
I should know that after all these years.
it's a little, I mean, it's different, right? So it's different from your fiscal year too, so it's a little confusing for myself anyway. Yeah, we can work on that and kind of just explore other options, or if there are any.
I do have a little bit to add to that. At the NVAA conference that I attended, I talked to multiple contractors while I was there specifically about this project. And a couple of them said they would have bid on it if they were aware. And for whatever reason, they didn't get the memo. So I think that if we advertise with the NBAA for that project, that message will get to those Nevada contractors and we'll have good response.
Good deal.
So
Okay.
that's
fair
definitely
enough.
one thing we can do to improve that. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else that you want to present to us on this? Corey, Nadine, anything?
I think the list for me concludes it. There is, I don't know if there's any interest in it, but there is kind of a map of what everything shows in terms of per year and all
Yeah,
of
it's
that.
fairly self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have anything to add.
Okay. Any comments or questions from Airport Authority members? Tim, anything?
No, it's all good with me.
Okay. If it's good with you, it's good with everyone, right? Well, on that note, we should probably entertain a motion to approve the ASIP as submitted.
Well, if nobody makes the motion, I will. I move that we approve the AIP program submitted.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the Airport Capital Improvement Plan as submitted this evening.
Second?
Harlow has seconded it. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And
Aye.
let's see, that would be 5 ayes. The ayes carry it. Thanks, Tim. Okay, thanks so much, Nadine. Appreciate it. Thank you, Corey. Item number 2. This will be for discussion and possible action regarding the final fiscal year 2022-2023 budget, well, the tentative 2022-2023 going to final, and adoption of the resulting budget. Corey.
A tentative budget was filed with the Nevada Department of Taxation and was approved at the March 16th, 2022 Carson City Airport Authority Board meeting. There have been some changes from the tentative budget to the final budget, and I will go through those changes now. There is a reduction of expected ground lease income. And as a result of that, we had to make some changes to the budget to make sure that we are going to show a net income for next fiscal year. Some of those other changes are reduced computer hardware budget. We've already incurred that expense, so it will not happen next fiscal year. Grant revenues have been adjusted to reflect the potential bipartisan infrastructure law funds. All of those funds were just in the ASIP that we just heard about. The funds from that particular law were not in the budget, in the tentative budget, and they're now in the final budget. That includes the terminal building funds, runway extension funds. As a part of that runway extension, the environmental analysis and 25% design portion of that. Also, the approach lighting phase 3 will incur some expenses during our fiscal year 2022-2023 because the federal government's fiscal year and our fiscal year don't line up. So that adjustment was put in there. The acquisition of the snow removal equipment was moved into next fiscal year, and that's because of the delay of that delivery of that equipment. We made some changes to the Carson City Airport Authority funded capital improvement project to make sure we meet we're not spending more than we're making. So the landscaping project was removed from the budget because landscaping could be a part of the terminal project. And in the event that we don't get the funding for the terminal project, then the funds would be freed up for that project. So we were able to remove that line item from the budget. The terminal sign was added as a standalone expense and separated from that landscape line item. The new taxiway signage budget was reduced. So the signs on the airport are faded and they need to be replaced, but that is a project that we can do in phases. We don't necessarily need to do it all at once, so we were able to reduce that budget. We also removed the FODBOS equipment purchase from the budget. And the result is a final budget showing a net income of $1,490. And those were the changes from the tentative budget to the final budget. And does anyone have any questions?
Tim, do you have anything?
No questions for me.
Okay. Paul, Stan, you folks have any comments? Stan? What about you, Harlow? Anything to add? On that note, then, the time would come for us to adopt this budget and move it up the food chain.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the FY 2022-2023 Carson City Airport Authority budget.
Okay, we have a motion to accept and approve, and a second, to accept and approve the fiscal year 22-23 budget. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, we have 5 ayes. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Corey.
All right.
And last action item on this evening's agenda is for discussion and possible action, approval of the proposed updated expense from YESCO for development and installation of a new airport sign. Corey, could you fill everybody in on this one, please?
This sign project definitely hit a bump in the road. So the original quote that we received from YESCO was prepared by an employee who is no longer working for the company and was essentially grossly underquoted. That value was quoted at $14,750. That is not possible. Not for that company or any other company. Yesco understands that they're the ones who made that mistake, and they prepared a new proposal that is essentially as cheap as they could possibly come up with for the development of that sign. They cut costs everywhere they could, and their new proposal is at $32,700. That is far more realistic. I did some comparative analysis. I found the cost of the Welcome to Carson City signs, which is the model that we're using to design this sign. Those signs were about $100,000 a piece. So for us to have this sign come in at $32,700, that's still a really good price for the sign. Compared to other companies in the area, and the fact that Yesco is cutting costs everywhere they can to accommodate for their mistake, I do think this is probably potentially the lowest price that we would find for that sign. I did ask them to also prepare an alternative proposal because of their snafu. So included in the packet is an alternative proposal that does not have the masonry work and is just a wooden posts with a wooden base. And that one came in at around 17,520. We do have room in the budget for the new proposed price, and that is included in the budget that we just went over. And I think I would be happy if we continued to proceed with the sign that matches the Welcome to Carson City design, as long as the board is okay with that. And that is pretty much all that I have for that. So essentially what I'm looking for is for the approval for the expense and to move forward with the design and installation of the sign that matches the Welcome to Carson City sign. But the board does have an option here to approve an alternative design if they wanted to save some money.
Stan?
Right. The flycarsoncity.com portion is actually going to be removed and replaced.
That was going to be my question, because I didn't like that there.
Yeah, we'll definitely put the elevation there. And I had sent them some new graphics, but this is the original design, so they're not included in the proposal. But the final design doesn't have the Welcome Carson City sign, and will have the elevation.
What will replace the flycarsoncity.com? Just the elevation?
Just the elevation as of right now.
Okay.
The name Carson City Airport is in the logo.
Yeah, and when I'm looking at this, and maybe it would be different in person, but it appears as if the words Carson City Airport are diminished, if you will, in comparison to the flycarsoncity.com below it. It is that way on this rendering.
Yeah.
We definitely don't want, so the elevation replaces flycarsoncity.com. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
But we want the name Carson City Airport to be very visible.
So what we can do is we can like Carson City Airport on top. Yeah, we could do that.
I think we ought to see a rendering of it from Yesco
Mm-hmm.
and let you and Stan approve it.
Okay. Yeah. So Stan, you and I can work on that project, and we'll make sure that we're happy with the final design.
I'm familiar with what the city paid, and I know this was 10 years ago or so.
Oh, yeah.
Paid 100,000 for each one of those signs.
They're nice signs.
Yeah, they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Paul, do you have any comments?
No, I think we should go ahead with the
I also agree with that. I think we ought to go ahead with the sign with the masonry and with the changes that we just discussed. The stars up top are nice, but Carson City or Carson City Airport with the elevation, as discussed, would be better.
You know what we might do while we're talking about this, and I'm going to give Tim the opportunity to weigh in on this too. Perhaps the way you do it is where the stars are, you have the words Carson City, and at the bottom, it says airport, where it says flycarsoncity.com. And then where it says airport at the bottom of the state logo there, put the elevation there. No,
Yeah, it's a great idea.
just a suggestion. But I think if you do Carson City where the stars are, airport at the bottom, that's going to look much better than what we have there right now. Tim, what's your opinion on all this?
I too support going ahead with the new cost. It seems more practicable to me as well. I'll trust Corey and Stan to come up with a final rendering that we could all be happy with. And as you know, I do have that design software and that logo. So if you'd like me to help you with some suggestions, I can do that for you after this meeting, the next couple of days.
That'd be fantastic. Thanks, Tim. Well, on that note, why don't we move on and do what we need to do to accept the revised proposal and take it on the chin on the cost.
And would that include the changes that need to be made and those to be responsible for that?
Yes, that would also include Dan Corey rendering as we just talked about. I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the revised proposal for the Carson City Airport sign. Stan and Corey will redesign the graphic, perhaps with Tim's input on that, which would be great. Tim, appreciate that. And we have a second on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Tim?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thanks, Tim. Corey, you're up for the airport manager's report. We got you doing a lot tonight.
Yeah.
I think you're relieved after this one.
All right. Okay, so fuel sales were a little bit less than last year. I'm not really sure what triggered that. I felt like it was a pretty good month in April.
Price.
Price, that does make sense. Yeah, fuel costs has skyrocketed, that's for sure.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Some updates. The Bobcat delivery has also been delayed, similar to the snowplow, for the same reasons. Supply problems across the country and across the world. They don't really have a good estimate for us on when they're going to actually be able to get one to us. So I'll be tracking that. There was an incident out at the airport on the 11th, in this month on the 11th. There was a helicopter doing training with the fire department at the fire department's parcel just south of the airport. And because of its proximity to the hangars over there, it was very disruptive to the airport tenants. I heard some back and forth on the radio from my office, and I started to head out there to see what was going on. And someone made a threat to shoot down that helicopter over the radio. The pilots immediately landed and they contacted the police. Um, the sheriff's deputy showed up and did a fantastic job of managing the situation. I was able to determine pretty quickly who had made that radio call. The individual they admitted to it right away, and it was determined that it was not actually a threat to the helicopter. Um, although they did break the law, and that is going to the district attorney. So there may be charges pressed against the individual who'd made that call over the radio. I was able to work together with the fire department, the sheriff's office, and the operator of the helicopter to mitigate the situation. So I made a point to both address the criminal activity that had taken place, but also to address the disruption to the hangar tenants. And it definitely got escalated because of that threat over the radio. I think that situation would have been resolved fairly easily if that hadn't happened. But of course, I was really happy with the sheriff's department, and I really feel like the sheriff's deputy that responded helped calm everybody down and get control over the situation and find out who did it, determine it wasn't actually a threat. And he was able to help negotiations with the operator of the helicopter and with the fire department in order to not only resolve the issue that day for our hangar tenants, but also come up with a plan for future training. And it should no longer be a disruption for the hangar tenants moving forward. Rick Lee and I did a big review of the emergency plan. The emergency plan, we found a lot of things that needed to be updated, but no major changes that were required. So we went ahead and did a revision on the emergency plan. We didn't complete that until yesterday, so it's not in the board packet, but I do have a copy of it with me if y'all would like to see it. But the changes are mostly just phone numbers and names. We went through and verified all the contact information is still current, and what wasn't, we updated. Also, we noticed that the emergency kit listed in the emergency plan basically didn't exist. So Rick put together an emergency kit for the airport that exceeded what was stated in the emergency plan, and we updated the emergency plan to reflect our new emergency kit that we now have at the airport. And in addition to the emergency kit, we also have a spill kit so that we're able to stop the flow of fuel in the event of a spill. It's not big enough to clean up a large fuel spill, but we can assist with stopping the flow of it if we need to with the kit that we've got. Airport operations, total airport operations for April was 2,224, according to the ADSB data, and the detailed charts of the operations are included below. And that concludes the manager's report.
Corey, you know what else impacted fuel sales last month? We had a ton of weather. When you're outside and it's 80 degrees and sunny out, you forget about that very quickly.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment?
Yes.
We're discussing fuel sales. Our company airplane was recently in Boston, and Signature Flight Support, Boston Logan, $13.62 a gallon. And so out at the Bedford, which is a short hop, a little bit out of town, at Jet Aviation for $12.09. And if you want to get a little further out in Beverly, Massachusetts, it's a steal at $10.31 a gallon.
You're
Full
going to see the decrease in sales. It's just going to happen.
Yeah.
It's going to happen, because people. It's not that people are choosing not to buy fuel here; they're parking the airplane.
Mm-hmm.
Is what's going on, and we've heard that from multiple customers.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just not flying. They're not. It's not that they're buying the fuel elsewhere; they're just not.
Mm-hmm.
Period. So, unfortunately, some just said, we're on strike, buyer strike. I heard from someone today who had a very long trip planned, and they decided to cancel because they were seeing what Harlow just referred to. They were seeing $10 plus jet fuel. They said, the hell with this, we're not going.
And in Europe with the
These-
mineral oil taxes, and we fly to Europe also, to Ireland, Estonia, to Germany. And our airplane was recently in Mexico, Costa Rica, and Cartagena and Medellin and Colombia and the Dominican Republic. And it's out of sight everywhere.
Yeah. You feel fortunate. We're still, around $5 at the self-serve.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
it is a steal.
yeah.
Yeah, and trust me, people are using it.
Right.
I see it every day.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, thank you so much for your report, Corey. Appreciate it.
Appreciate that.
And Harlow, thanks for the update on global fuel prices. And you're spot on. Yeah, well, people are literally parking the plane. I'll tell you a story after the meeting. Someone I know. Steve.
Legal counsel report, Steve Takis. A couple of items. One, we're selling an Albatross on Friday. I've been told that it was only flown by a little old lady on Sunday mornings to go to church, and so it's in great shape. No, seriously, we're selling it as is because we don't know what condition and what issues it has. We filed our lien documents with the FAA. I checked with the FAA earlier this week to just make sure they had them on file. And you can't talk to anybody in Oklahoma City at the FAA right now. You get a recording saying, we're too busy, call us back later. And there doesn't appear to be a good time to call them back. And by the way, we're currently working on documents from December, filed in December. So I'm not concerned about that because we've gone down this road before, and I'm sure the lien documents that I filed are correct. And so we're going to go ahead with the sale. On Friday, we have two people that have expressed an interest in it, both of whom have a good deal of background in albatrosses and large Grumman aircraft. And so we're hoping that we have two eager bidders and they'll bid the price up and we'll get all of our costs covered.
Steve?
Yes.
Can I ask you,
Yeah.
is this being held via auction then?
Yes.
And
yes.
is it online auction? I'm just curious. Online
Well,
auction?
actually, I
or-
set up a Zoom link, but I'm having trouble getting a hold of one of the two buyers who is from Florida.
Mhm.
But I'm hopeful that we'll get a hold of him and he'll be participating by Zoom. But if others wanted to participate by Zoom, all they need to do is contact us and we can send them the invite.
And do we have a company that's holding that auction for us?
No, we're just doing it.
You're doing it
There's
internally?
not, yeah, I've done them before. There's really not a whole lot to it. We just ask people to show up and we satisfy ourselves that they have the financial wherewithal to do it. And then we go ahead and let them bid on it and bid against each other and go back and forth until somebody says, this is it. I can't go any higher and nobody else will go higher. And then we confirm the sale. Because we don't know what it is going to sell for, we will allow the bidders to post their money later. And when they post their money, then of course we'll give them the FAA bill of sale so they can transfer title.
I've driven by that thing hundreds and hundreds of times in my life.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, does it still have its engines in it?
It has brand new, never used engines in
Are
it.
you kidding me?
No, Dennis Buin installed new engines, although the other buyer, who is also an expert in albatrosses, did look at purchasing it once and turned the prop, manually turned the props and heard a clunk, so there may be a rod issue in it.
Mm.
But those, even though they're brand new, when you sit that long unused, somebody has to go through and rebuild them. They have to take them apart and rebuild
Yeah.
them. But yeah, it's kind of tragic. And the guy who owned it, we can't seem to find any location on him. We've done what we're supposed to do under the law, which is send all the notices to the last registered owner, which we did. It's just the way it works. In the past, usually when we've done these lien sales, the true owner shows up, before the lien sale and ponies up the money that's due to the airport. This one, though, I'm fairly confident it's gonna get sold. And for a little while, we wanted to get it sold right away because we wanted to get it off that Bravo parcel because we expected Carson Tao Executive to be building soon, and we wanted to get it out of their way. Now that, because that's stalled, there probably isn't that urgency, but our notice says they got to move it someplace and
Well, let's
take care of it.
take the money and get rid of it.
Yeah.
It's an
Yeah, yeah.
it's an eyesore
Yeah.
anyways.
Yeah. And that's what our plan is. And so that's going to happen on Friday at high noon.
Keep us posted,
Yeah,
please.
will do. Okay. And then the other items that I have is we had a meeting with Carson Tao Executive at their request. And the short version is they had done some preliminary engineering estimates, found out how much it would cost, and basically said they can't go forward with it at these kinds of costs. And their estimate was roughly $14 million for the infrastructure for the airport side of the project. And that's before you build a hangar. Carl in the meeting pointed out, well, wait a second, 4 million of that is for the through the fence access ways, which are really an obligation on the other side of the fence. Well, the other side of the fence is also Carson Tao Executive. So he's correct that that shouldn't be part of your estimate of what it's going to cost to build the hangars on the airport side. But because it's the same owner, the logical thing for them to do would be to build them and do that pavement at the infrastructure at the same time. So I'm sure when they're looking at it, they're saying, hey, look, that's when we're going to do it. That's what it's going to cost us. So we talked about a bunch of alternatives, and candidly, the rental rate on the lease is such a tiny component of this project that there really isn't anything that we could do. Not that we could change that anyway, but our side of the expense is not driving this. It's the construction expense. It's the concrete. It's the underground. It's the utilities. It's the paving. It's all that good stuff. And so we talked about other options, and one of the options that they may come back to us with, and from an email that Corey and I received this afternoon, it sounds like they're thinking more seriously about it, is coming back with a proposal to just lease a portion of it, like the first third or fourth of it, the small chunk, and then build the airport side and the other side of the fence at the same time as one project, a much smaller project. Although James Pickett did caution us during the meeting that if the numbers come in like they did for the airport project, it could be a while before that project goes forward because the numbers are kind of scary. But overall, we had it was a very friendly and cooperative meeting. I mean, we were all sitting at the table. Well, Harlow was there, and Tim was there, and Carl was there, as well as Corey and I. And I think we were all trying to think of ways that how could we help make this happen. And since none of us are bankrolling construction companies, I don't think that's going to happen from our standpoint. But there's other, there may be other possibilities. The third thing is I gave you a briefing on Through the Fence because there's been a lot of questions asked about Through the Fence, and I thought it's important for you to have the big picture. I've also shared much of that information with James Pickett, even during our meeting that we had the other day, just so he knows, because their outside project, which we've now seen on a drawing, is a common area that's adjacent to the airport, serving individual parcels that are around that common area. And that, it doesn't fit the Through the Fence ordinance, the John D. Winters property rights agreement, but almost more importantly, I think the FAA would have a real difficult time with it. And the reason I say that is the FAA does not like Through the Fence agreements. And we were able to get our ordinance put together, and because it was done early, and the Board of Supervisors originally designed this area as industrial, expecting people to have hangars and have airport use. And so we've pushed back on the FAA a couple of times, and they've been okay with it. But if they see, gateway parcels to other parcels to get through the fence, I suspect they're going to have some issues with it. Now, This doesn't mean that there aren't solutions to the problem. For every problem, there are some solutions. And Corey's actually come up with some pretty clever ones already, and I don't know if they'll work, but it's good thinking outside the box. So there may be solutions to this. But I thought it was important for you to just have an overview of the through the fence arrangement and our agreements with the city and the ordinance and the John D. Winters thing, which remarkably, the Carson City through the fence ordinance is very similar to the John D. Winters agreement. In fact, I couldn't find anybody who's still alive who was involved in that process, but it could well be that they used the John D. Winters agreement as the model when they built Title 19 through the fence provisions. Only other thing I would add is on the helicopter incident, I had, coincidentally, I spent the weekend with the director, or I had a meeting, all-day meeting with the director of the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, which oversees the forest, the NDF people and the other people. And he was asking me about what's going on at the airport, and I mentioned that. And he immediately understood, somebody calls out on the radio saying they're going to shoot you down. That's a serious thing. We got to deal with it, which Corey did, and I think the sheriff's deputy handled very well. But the flip side of that, too, is that is not just a problem for the airport. That's a problem for the community, because I talked to several people now who saw the event, and they said the plume of dust was so large it completely covered the mobile home park that's just south of us. Now, we go out of our way in the airport to remain good friends to those people in the mobile home park, many of whom are elderly on fixed incomes. And so it doesn't help us, and it doesn't help NDF, and it doesn't help anybody when we're completely dusting their homes. And so it's something that I'm glad that Corey jumped on and talked to the fire guys and saying, not a good place for you to do this kind of exercise. Certainly you may want to do exercises where you have helicopters working with firefighters, dropping them, picking them up, hovering low, but don't do it over a dusty environment right next to an inhabited area or next to the hangars. Currently, that fire station parcel is still part of the airport. We're trying to get that split off. We're working with Robert Nellis in the city. He shot us a map earlier so that we could parcel it off. But we're still working with him on the borders, because I think whoever he had on the staff that put it together took what they thought was an easy fix by bumping the city fire department parcel all the way out to the ring road beyond the fence line. And that's a problem, because we've actually done some work on that. It's part of the airport that we're doing work on. And so we need to come up with a way to limit that to the fence line. So, but I just mentioned that because, we work so hard to be good neighbors. And, I know that these people were not intending to do anything to disrupt it, but as soon as they saw the plume of dust they were creating, somebody should have just said, hey, maybe this isn't such a good idea. But we'll get through it. We'll get there.
Steve, there's a little more to that story.
Okay.
Corey called me immediately when this occurred, and I instructed Corey,
Yeah.
call the sheriff's office.
Yeah.
However, we also determined that NDF had pulled the breaker on their ADSB.
Oh,
Yeah, and you nailed it. In essence, they shouldn't have been landing where they were.
Yeah.
There was no reason for that. And Corey made that very clear to them, that the appropriate LZ for this activity is on the airport, not on a grassy, dirty piece of land to make a giant mess of the entire neighborhood.
Yeah.
So they were told, hey, you're at the airport, just use the airport. They didn't want to do that. So there were, there's two sides to every coin, and not everybody had a halo over their head that day.
yeah. I did also talk with the family of the guy who made the radio call. Now he's, to those of us who know the guy, he is a gentle spirit kind of guy, and it seems so out of character when I heard that he did this, because it's hard to visualize this guy doing that. But he is getting much older, and his son, who is a just recently retired transport pilot, he is going to move in with him, and they're going to start looking to check and just make sure he's doing okay. Because in my estate planning practice, I see this a lot. People get older, and that filter that we all have that stops us from saying the first thought that pops into our head, oh my God, you've gotten really fat. We would never say that because our filter stops us. As you get older, sometimes that filter doesn't work very good. And so part of the thinking is maybe there's something else going on that we need to be aware of, but the family's taking it very seriously because they're worried about him. That's all I got.
Okay, thank you, Steve. In John's absence, we do have a treasurer's report. You can review it at your leisure. We did, of course, approve the budget, so unless anyone has any comments on it, we'll just move on from there. Report from any airport authority members? Anyone? Tim, do you have anything for us?
Nothing from Tim.
Paul, anything? Harlow, Stan, I have one report to make to everyone. We have been working very closely hand in hand with Senator Jackie Rosen and her staff in getting them to support our grant application efforts. They've been in contact with the FAA. We've gotten some feedback through them. Senator Rosen's office is not very happy with the response they're getting from the FAA. They're going to be writing a letter signed by Senator Rosen supporting our efforts, in particular on the terminal project, which should help us out tremendously. And I've been told that Senator Rosen will be personally involved in, keeping track of that grant application through her staff. So just wanted to let you know where that's at. Sometimes there's things that happen behind the scenes. That is one of them. Mark Amadei's office has also been very supportive in this effort, not as much as Senator Rosen's office. And Senator Cortez Masto has not responded to our requests for assistance or support, and we've kind of let that go. So, last call for public comment. Anyone? Okay, seeing none. Corey, can you give us a expectation of what we might see on next month's agenda? Do you have anything in mind? Maybe a preview?
I don't have any agenda items right now for next month's meeting,
Okay.
But I can say that we'll be working on trying to establish a way to lease out the parcels in the triangle, and there may potentially be something on the agenda related to that.
Fantastic.
And that's something we've been working on. We're going to continue to move towards doing that. We have about 8 interested parties in developing hangars.
Right.
So hopefully we can find a way to accommodate them.
We're going to try to make it work. And as always, if anybody requests an agenda to be placed on, an item to be placed on the agenda, let me know, and we'll make it happen. We'll discuss it, make sure it's appropriate, and put it on the agenda. On that note, it's about 6:30. Pretty efficient meeting. Thank you all. We are adjourned. Thanks, Tim.